feel like we should take a deep breath. Okay, take a deep breath in. Big exhale out. One more deep breath in. Exhale out. Yeah, this is going to be so good.
On today's episode, we have Paige. And if you don't know Paige, she is literally, I'm going to first say, creative visionary, co-founder of Class Studios, creative director of several brands under her belt, aunt, wife,
yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to have you here, Paige.
Thank you so much.
The first question I have for you is, what discomfort has led to this beautiful, amazing aura of a woman who's sitting in front of me today?
Number one, I just want to say thank you for having me. I feel so honored to be here. And number two, I love you so much for asking the big question. It kind of made my stomach drop when you first asked it, because I love that we're going there. We're going there. And so we can take this a lot of different ways, but I feel like what's coming up the most is whoa, how did I become 31 so quickly, right? We are sitting here in the age that we're at, and a lot of life has happened. I've been in Dallas for almost a decade now, but my roots are in Kansas.
Ooh.
And so when you say discomfort and what led me to being here, I feel like I have to throw it back to the roots of
hometown.
Why did I even make it to Dallas in the first place? Because this city has been such an expander for me in so many ways.
Okay.
I've gotten to meet you. I've gotten to meet our whole network of fitness professionals and creatives, and started my businesses here. But I look back at who I was in Kansas. I was there up until I was about 21 years old. And part of me doesn't identify with her anymore.
Yeah, I don't even think, I thought you were from Dallas.
No, girl.
So this is a wrench, and I was like, okay.
Yeah. I was born on the East Coast until I was 8. I was in Pennsylvania, and then my parents, we moved back to family in Kansas. So when you're in middle school, high school, you kind of claim that as your hometown, because that's where the real growth is. And so I lived in Topeka, Kansas, in the state capital, all throughout high school. And then I went to the University of Kansas for college. So my parents are still there. My little sister is there with her family. And so we definitely have Kansas roots, Midwest roots.
Okay.
Which is a really, really beautiful place to be raised. But it's also nothing like Dallas. I think my heart was
at all
screaming and craving to end up in a place like this that felt really curious and colorful and bold, and had the opportunities that I needed to grow. But yeah, I just think back to her, and I've done a lot of inner child therapy work over the past few years of what does it look like to look back with loving eyes versus regret or shame, or just the questions of why did I do this? Why did I do that? And I think we can just zoom out and be well, we were just doing the best that we could
with what you had.
With what I had. So yeah, just who I was raised to be was definitely an achiever. I've always had that mentality of really wanting to succeed and help people and see people. But I just feel I got a little lost. I was one of the youngest girls on my cheer squad, and middle school and high school, just always wanted to identify with the older girls. And that led to really young partying and drinking and the whole lifestyle of succeeding in day by doing the cheerleader thing, academics, but totally partying and kind of going crazy nights and weekends. And that was really young. And so when you say what discomfort led me to kind of where I am, I feel I had a lot of wild life experiences really young. And my parents were going through a divorce during that time, where I was figuring out what my friendships looked like, middle school to high school. And I would say that was one of the most pivotal points for me, is when home life shifts, you have to really latch on to, well, where's my security and foundation going to be? And it was in a really dark place for a long time. I was seeking and looking for what would that strong foundation look like, or what would I build upon? And that was kind of whether that be partying or just all these avenues of trying to kind of figure out what your life is going to be as an adolescent.
You were trying to find a safe space, explore, still learning who you are during that time, and a lot of self-discovery and cheerleading. So you competitively compete, when you think of the cheerleading movies, Bring It On and all of that, Paige, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So kind of share a bit about that, because that does, one, you're exposed to a lot. I'm sure you're traveling a lot. You're on these teams. It's a lot of pressure, body image, as far as like the size you need to be actually compete. Like, I used to watch these movies and be like, oh my God.
And it's real. Like, a lot of the movies, it feels, Netflix came out with a series called Cheer recently in the past few years, and I watched it and I was like, it's so spot on. Like, it is so spot on, and it kind of took me back. But I was raised in athletics. I was a gymnast my whole life. I can give a lot of like respect and love towards my older sister, because she paved the way. She was an incredible athlete, and so I wanted to be just like my sister, wear the leotards. We both started in gymnastics, and then I kind of moved to competitive cheerleading. I was always a tumbler, but there's something about gymnastics that's very individual, and my energy craved people and like the community of a team. So I moved over to competitive cheerleading in high school, and I drove an hour for practice to Kansas City from Topeka almost every night and then back. So 2 hours a night. When I got my license at 16, I would like drive to Kansas City, come back, because Topeka didn't have teams that had like the level of competition that I wanted to be on. So I was like already creating this very routine,
going out
regimented
and searching.
life.
Like, you were like, if it doesn't have it here, I don't have to remain stuck. I'll go out and I'll find it, or I'll go create it. I love that.
So I was young, and I was already like, hey, I really want to be with the best so that I can better myself. And those years of like being in high school, going to Kansas City at night to practice, I mean, it just really created like a very go-getter mentality in me. And my parents were always really supportive that athletics were a big part of my life. So now, thinking about the fitness studios I own, I'm like, it all started so young, and how beautiful that is that it can start when you're really young. But yeah, that team meant everything to me, because like I said, with home life and like school being a little bit more fluid, it's where I put a lot of my time and energy, and I was good. I was really good at what I did because I cared a lot about it, and I cared about my team. So competitive cheer was a huge part of my life. But even then, the girls and guys were like, you know, partiers. So it's like, wow, I was kind of surrounded by it on all fronts. But cheerleading was a big part of my life. I tried out for my college team, and I didn't make it. I was told by the coaches that I was overweight, and I was like 110 pounds. So it was like the classic, like, wow, that's real life, and that happens, like the body shaming.
How does that, like, let's break that down, because I feel like a lot of women go through that, myself included. Like, when you are in the fitness world and you're already harsh on your body, you're harsh on like, do I eat that? Do I want to feel bloated? Do I do this?
Totally.
What about this? You're also like competing, but also out drinking. That bloats you and all of that. So it's like, and your age of somebody looking at you and saying, you're not small enough. And I'm sure your mind is already, before you get there, saying, okay, I need to be perfect in every single space, this little pinch of skin. So how does that like really feel, and how did you get through that? Yeah,
that's a great question. My senior year of high school, I knew that I wanted to make the collegiate team, right? So I felt like I could kind of like clean up what I was doing in extracurriculars and like really focus on my actual like physical body, and I was honoring it in a really good way. I really had like started finding my faith and just like really dedicating to God versus feeling like I had to find all of this almost like respect from the people that I knew probably didn't care about me that much. Like I really dove into kind of like my church community and found that my worth was not tied to any of the things that I did, but actually it's like, it's in here.
People pleasing, like you cut that out at the start of it.
Tried to, at least, right? It's always going to be a journey, but I was like 18 and I really wanted to make this team, and I kind of like put myself back into, Paige, I can do this for me, and worked really, really hard, made it to tryouts, did well, but I'm 5'4", and the average height of a collegiate cheerleader, especially when it's like a stunts-driven school, is like 5 feet. So I'm quite tall, and I went through the tryouts and I did well, but it was very much this understated, like, she's too tall, she's a little too big for the school. So I was cut on the finals, and I was devastated. I had a dream of being a KU cheerleader. And God had a plan all along, because I wasn't supposed to be there, because I think I took it really poorly and like spent a few more months searching like, what will college look like for me, just because I thought it was going to be one way. And body image got I was really regimented, right? I was working out a lot for tryouts. And then I kind of fell back into this pit of like, where's my identity in college now?
Yeah, because everything you thought you wanted, right?
Yes, literally.
It's like, no. And you're like, okay, what do I do now?
Exactly.
Because for all throughout school, this is what I've practiced for. This is what I wanted, God.
Exactly.
What?
Yeah. And I kind of had the confidence of like, I'm going to make it. Like I had friends on the squad and I still really like think highly of the program, but it just wasn't for me. And it was a really huge slap in the face. And so I joined a sorority, which was really cool, but again, just brought me right back into these like wild partying roots. And I was scared to go back there, gained a ton of weight. And that is when I remember I kind of hit another rock bottom my freshman year, and I didn't like who I was seeing in the mirror, not only physically, because I really had gained like 25 pounds. And for somebody my size, it felt like I wasn't in my own body. And I was so sad that I let myself get there. And a neighbor in the dorm that I was living in, she was from one of the states up north. I didn't know her well, but she knocked on my door and was like, would you want to try KU Crew, which is the rowing team? She was like, would you want to go to one of their practices with me? They're doing like an open call. And I honestly just craved a team again, like a community again, because I love my sorority, but I needed athletics. That's just who I am. So I started going to KU Crew practices, and I like basically joined this recreational rowing team. I think it saved me. Like, I think it really did. I think it gave me more purpose of I'm back with a team. I have to kind of work hard to accelerate the boat. I ended up being a coxswain, which is the person that commands the boat and directs the boat.
Of course.
And now it makes sense. I wear a mic in my classes. She was
always the leader. She always was, but
it made me fall in love with fitness again, and not for cheerleading, but for me, and maybe like doing a different sport. And I look back and I was like, I was on the rowing team. But I think plans and purposes always make sense when you're looking back from the future. And I'm like, wow, that was such a sweet season, because the rest of my college career looked massively different than what it would have looked like had I not found any sort of like team athletic sport. I didn't stay on crew long, but it allowed me to find fitness for myself again.
Yeah, it helped you know this was something that was important. This was a core value of yours. Like, I like fitness for me, not just like fitness for cheerleading. I enjoyed cheerleading because it allowed me to be that extreme athlete that I loved.
Exactly.
So I think that is awesome.
Yeah, because I think all along I was thinking about training my body for this thing, like for XYZ, right? And that was cheer and that was rowing. But and maybe it takes that like spiritual, emotional maturity of understanding that our bodies are truly like with us for the long haul. So why pound for this goal when you can actually just use your strength to just enjoy life to more full extents? And so I started falling in love with what fitness could be for my mental health. And I never, ever let myself access that point of physical fitness. It was always just for what would my body look like.
Yes.
And then I started really falling in love with the KU Rec Center, like the big gyms that they have on college campuses. And I would take some of their like group classes or go walk on the track that they had or start lifting weights. I really wanted to lift, but it was so intimidating in the rec. You're like, I don't know, it's a bunch of guys. And I just like started picking up weights one day and kind of like started teaching myself. And I'm really, really grateful for these ups and down seasons, because I think sometimes you do have to go low to realize like, oh man, what can I do to pull myself back up?
It's a lot of times, and this is why I bring up that discomfort, because I think so often we think of this microwavable, like, I thought about it, pop the popcorn and here we go. And it's like, you hear like, you've not only put your 10,000 hours, you've put your 20,000 hours, 30,000 hours into you. And like what people see is really an overflow of the love, the faith, the encouragement, the motivation, the discipline, the perseverance that you've put in you and what you've allowed yourself to try. Yeah. I think that's also something like you're not giving up in the moments that are difficult. When you brought up your parents getting a divorce, okay, how can I go explore what safety and security looks like for me? Yeah. Okay, I didn't get the thing that I really wanted, and like, this is all I thought life was going to be. Yes. How can I just sit in it I think a lot of people won't sit in and say, I hate this or I dislike this.
Yeah.
And then that's when God comes, the universe or whatever is like, tap. But you have to be willing to say yes. And when you were willing to say yes to like the crew, like,
I know.
You're like, you have to laugh at it. Like, sure, I'll try. Like at that point, you were so open to be like, I'll try it. I'm fine to try it. And it's like, that's what's so inspiring right now. It's like you had a lot of exploration in your life that you're like, now when you hone in on the things that you love, it's like, I'm so clear.
Yes. Yes. And I still consider myself a yes person. I think it's harder as we age and we have like all of these priorities. But had I not said yes to Jacqueline knocking on my door to try crew, not sure what would have happened. I was driving my car 7-8 years ago and I see this group of people on the side of the road. One of them is my now husband. And it's like, if I wouldn't have said yes to that invitation to like help with the photo shoot they were doing, I would have never met him. And I am one of those people that I feel really divinely connected to things, like, you know, that just the gut feeling.
So the yes comes from that. That's what I want to, it's not just like you're saying yes to everything that comes, but there's something in you that like, if you're asked, you have this feeling that you're like, I should try this.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't want to say that I say yes to everything. I think that's actually the opposite. I've learned and have trained myself to make a powerful yes if it's going to be a yes. But I think we all, as really like driven women, at least in you and I's network of all the beautiful things and people that we have gotten to share, a no is really hard to say, but it's so important.
It is
so important.
So let's unpack that, because my friends now know me as Jazz will say no, will not attend, and like be at peace. Like I can say no, period. And it, because when I show up, I do want to show up 100%. I don't have to show up. Like I can be dealing with something, but it's also like your intentions matter.
Yeah.
So that yes matters, and you literally can be distracted. There are a lot of distractions out there. And so you have to discern like what is best for you in this season. And that sometimes I'm like, in this season, I really can't. So I love you. Yeah. And that's why I always want to give my soul out, because it's like, if I say no, you don't feel hurt or upset at me, and you can understand that it hurt me to say no.
Yeah. I mirror you so much in that. Everything that you just said, I'm like, let's go. That feels right. But it took a lot of work to get here. And I also just want to like kind of shout out probably our circles, and maybe even just like the men and women that you just said, that when you know, share that no, I love you, this is why, they're seeing you and understanding, and they know your heart on like, oh yeah, her capacity is just full right now. And there's certain seasons where I have to give more back to myself. I have to give more to my husband and our marriage. I have to give more to the businesses. And so there are the fluctuating yeses and nos. But in my 20s, it was yes to so many things because I didn't want to miss out. It was the FOMO, but it was also just the opportunities that were presenting themselves. So I went really hard in so many directions. But what's so beautiful about the refinement process over the years is you start to feel really good about the no's and even better about the yeses. So I love what you said about like, if it's a yes, it's intentional. It's with, I'm going to show up fully, and I'm going to really be present for this person or this celebration or this podcast. This was a yes. This was an immediate yes.
I love when you, I think, responded like in 10 minutes. I was like, I love this. So now we get to college. You know, you're transitioning out of that because it sounds like you moved to Dallas.
Yeah.
Right after college.
After the 4 years at KU. I thought I would be on a coast. I was feeling like I said, just called outside of Kansas. I didn't feel like I should stay there. I got a few job opportunities in graphic design in Kansas City, which was wonderful to receive, but I was like, this isn't for me. I need to go. And I was scared if I didn't go then, I would maybe get a little comfortable because a lot of my friends stayed in Kansas City. But one of my favorite professors, Tad Carpenter at KU, so talented. He had a connection at Fossil headquarters. So the creative director and him were friends. And I was applying there anyway because I thought, what a cool company. It's kind of like they created this new campus in Richardson where there's like a Starbucks and a fitness facility. And I felt like if I was there, maybe it wouldn't just be work. It would be like a communal vibe, kind of what I'd always wanted.
Crave community.
Yes. And so I applied at Pinterest and SF and kind of like all these places, but I ended up getting the interview at Fossil. And to be 21 and to be told that you're going to get like flown down hotel room, like you feel so cool. I was like, I can't believe I get to like interview for this really great company. Loved the interview process. I think you can just right away say, is this the energy I want to spend my time with? And so I moved like a month or two later here to Dallas. I lived in Deep Ellum by myself for the first 2 years here, but I was driving to Richardson, which was an hour and a half commute. That was silly, but I wanted to be by the city, the energy of the city. And Fossil was such a beautiful time for me. I was a graphic designer sitting at a desk, but was also very much leading like the gatherings of people, like going for drinks after work. And it was just really great to be around other creatives here in Dallas.
Okay, so you built a foundation on community prior to college and high school. Now you start to build a foundation on creative.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know you were studying graphic design.
Yeah, that's what my major's in. Graphic design and business.
So now it's that creative coming out. Yeah. And so kind of take us through that, because these are all become Paige what we see today. Yeah. Like that's why I always share with people, you have to put the work in. It's not really you think about it and now here we are. Like every area of your life you've put work into, because like I said, you do have multiple brands that you are the creative director of, and photography, and it's like that lens that you see life through is definitely a creative. So
even just what you were saying, one thing that's coming up is I needed to know myself a bit more before I feel like I could actually be creative. And I think other creatives might agree that unless you're feeling safe and confident in like who you are, then your expression can't flow. So like all those young years, and I was in college for graphic design, and I did really well in school. I loved my graphics program, but I never, like I said, I didn't really identify with who I was. I wasn't living like my truest self. And so I was really excited for Dallas to start and let this be like a new chapter of almost breaking free and branching out to really find myself. Again, I was 21, 22, and Fossil was a really safe place to land, and I started to really let my creative juices flow. And even after I landed the job at Fossil, I'm there 9 to 5, but I'm here in Dallas and I started freelancing for bloggers. I would like do their graphic design. So I worked for Lauren K. Sims for a little bit and the Dallasites girls before their blog was even a thing, really. They had me take their photos and build their first website. So I was getting really narrowed into, I want to know female entrepreneurs in the city. Yeah. And so I met Natalie of Studio Hop, who opened like a fitness app. It was kind of it is a competitor to ClassPass. And I was spending my time working hard, but also networking and creating this group of women around me. Basically all I ever wanted Kansas to be, but I just wasn't there yet.
It couldn't be that for you.
It couldn't be that.
Yeah.
So Fossil was a space where my creative abilities were really flourishing. But after a couple years there, I knew that I needed to come back to the physical fitness of whatever that looked like. So I came on at Studio Hop as their creative director. So I left corporate, went to startup, and I got to have my hands in so many different things because I was just this little junior designer that like helped the senior designers at Fossil. Beautiful season. I needed that. It was my first job. But then I stepped into Dallas can be more expansive if I'm working for a startup and I have more on my plate. Yeah. And I think that directly then channeled into me knowing what startup culture is like and what like it can be like to own something of your own.
Did you know that in that, like when you left Fossil, were you like, I want to have something of my own, but I don't know how to do it yet? Or was it like, I'm just trying this because I get to kind of see this from a different perspective? Going to a corporate company, everything's already put in place. and then that startup, you really get to have a voice in the identity of the brand that's being created.
Yeah.
So, but within that inception point, was there something within you that was like, I want to create something on my own?
I think it was what you said second of like, I just want to be a part of something and grow it, because maybe in the back of my head, it was like, I want to own something or have something of myself or of my own, but I was still only 23. And I think I had these really limiting beliefs that I couldn't do that. So maybe I was like, hey, let me ride the coattails of this really amazing woman, Natalie, who started Studio Hop. I was basically like the third or fourth employee, to where I felt like maybe I can just be learning.
You can make impact.
Yeah, I was in a really big season of just wanting to learn and be a student of, because of course I did graphic design, but then like you said, I got to pick up photo. I got to pick up more of the like community networking aspect of bringing studios onto the platform. And it allowed me to coach fitness morning and night. There was a little bit more flexibility of being able to teach classes at studios as well.
Okay.
So I started coaching at the Ride House, the first cycle gig I ever had, which was like almost 10 years ago now. And so I would like wake up at 5, teach a class, and then work all day. But I felt like I was living a dream, because it was like all fitness, it was all creative. And I started blending the two worlds that I always wanted to be in, both fitness and creative.
So I think, what would you share to someone, like, if they're at that point? Because I think a lot of people feel like it's two roads, and they're like going in this direction or going in that direction. And I'm always like, no, center within and just walk. And you promise you they'll always come together. And it sounds like you started to allow that to merge. But what advice can you pull from that version of you who is starting to merge and give to someone? Because I think so many people are doing this dance, and then they're like, pick one. And it's like, you really don't have to pick one. It'll come together.
Yeah. And I can speak to, I feel really lucky that mine felt like it came together naturally. Of course, looking back, it was a lot of hard work, but I'm like, man, did I get lucky, or like what happened there? Because it felt like my mission fields and what I felt called to very much, like you said, roads converged, and I was like able to do both. I think one of the biggest things that I said at Fossil, even as a junior designer, was like, I have a capacity that's bigger than what I'm doing. Give me more. And in a corporation that size, rightfully so, it's run pretty strict. So I wasn't able to branch out of this box, even though I really wanted to. So that's why I took on freelance clients and started like doing Instagram posts with brands. And like before like partnerships and influencing was ever really a thing, I just started using my Instagram like a scrapbook. And I really started kind of working with brands that way. So it was just recognizing that I felt like I had a capacity that wasn't being met. And so I looked for that elsewhere. And maybe that could be stewarded or channeled into somebody like doing a side hustle, or having something that feels like their creative expression is showing, and then figuring out how to merge with their full-time or whatever they're doing outside of that side hustle. But for me, what a dream to be able to bring the two things that I wanted into just like my full-time role. And so I voiced to Natalie, these are the things that I think I can do for your company. And she was like, great, let's go.
Love it.
Versus a corporation, you know, it's like I was just in a box, and that's okay. That's what that season was. But the jump from corporate to startup felt like I was like taking off heavy clothes, because I was like, I'm free. I get to do so many things, failing at some, learning in others, but my skill set grew in that season, and it really opened up the door to becoming the co-owner of Class Studios.
Yeah. And it sounds like Natalie believed in you early on, and you believed in her. 100%. So it was like this marriage of like, we can help each other. Yeah. Oh my God, I love that.
She's such a stellar human. Yeah.
So now you're at Studio Hop, and take us through that next iteration of like, because I feel like maybe it was fast moving after that for you, because Class Studios came shortly after.
Yes. It came about 1.5 2 years after. So it was kind of like that small chunk. I mean, I feel like my Dallas seasons, there were multiple pages, right? Like Fossil for 2 years, Studio Hop for 1.5 years, and now Class Studios has been the past 7. So it was pretty fast and furious in the beginning. But I look back on my Studio Hop creative director season with like heart star eyes. Like it was me living my purpose out. Fossil was beautiful at the time. I thought that was my purpose. And then you step into something bigger, like I said, taking on more. And I look back and I'm like, man, she was loving her life. I obviously was coaching fitness, so I was able to teach, take classes, be a student of fitness, was also expanding my creative palette. And then I met my husband. So like that season was really special because we were dating during Studio Hop. And meeting a partner who sees you and sees your dreams and like never stifles them was the most attractive thing about him. He like thought it was so cool that I had really, really big dreams and visions. Because even when Studio Hop was going, we were growing the company really fast. So Studio Hop was growing fast. And one of the investors in Studio Hop is my now business partner, Jasmine, and her husband, John.
Oh, wow.
So I was meeting Jasmine just because she was connected to the brand and was interested in what Studio Hop was going to do. And she and I were teaching at the Ride House together. So she was my...
She started to build a personal relationship with you. Okay.
She was at the Ride House as the studio manager, and one thing led to another. And after some time, she opened up class and was like, hey, I want to do this with you. And I need you to like do the branding, do the logo, create the identity. And throughout everything, I just owe so much to Natalie, to Jasmine. I think we can all think about the men and women who believed in us when we didn't really believe that we could do what their ask was. And you step in with so much faith. You step in taking a risk. And I believe, at least in my story, it's always been better than I ever thought it could be.
I always say, God, show me how good it really gets, how good it can get. Yes. And it's like, he's like, bet.
Let's go. Yeah.
But it also really sounds like, because how intentional you were, and you were always in your purpose. It never sounds like any season you were not in your purpose, and you were willing to pivot when that gut feeling was like, this isn't it anymore. Yeah. I really don't know what's necessarily next, but I know what I like. Yeah. And I'll explore that. And so two people, when they because a lot of people meet their mountain, their block. And it's like your story, I'm sure you had those, but it didn't take long because you were so open and available to yourself, and you were always true to yourself, important into you, loving on you, faith, purpose. Exactly. That it didn't take long. But how do you, even the mentors who came to you, how do you mentor people now and saying you got to get out of your own way? And a lot of times people don't think they are in their way. They're like, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Yes. I love that you're doing all those things, but what if you just be still and step back right quick? You know?
No, that's like a loaded question because I feel like I have so much I could say. One of the things that you just said is being still, and my yoga mentor said this years ago and I've latched onto it. We're human beings, not human doings. And I do, and I qualify myself by what I'm doing. But the real power is just being. Yeah. And I'm still learning that. I'm very much Enneagram 3 personality type, love all of the things that I'm doing in life. But I'm wow, past any title, past any role, what's going on in here? And so when I meet with some of the people that I mentor, number one, I just have to kind of check them. Where are we at? Where's your spirit? Yeah. Where's your mental? And it's been really cool that I've been around people that have shown me how I want to see it done. Like you and all of our Lululemon colleagues and my yoga mentor and these really amazing people that I've kind of positioned to where I can watch how they're doing life. And I just watch how they're walking versus how they're talking and how they're talking. But when somebody walks at the walk and they're really leading the life that you respect and look up to, I just wanted to get around more of those people. And I've built such a beautiful community here that then if I'm mentoring somebody, of course I ask them how they're doing and we really check into the heart space. But then I kind of say who are you connected to and who's pushing you forward?
See, you listen, Paige has shared this entire time. Community was at the heart and foundation of everything from you from a very long age. So that is rooted deeply. And I think the people you are around, I always say this, when God gives abundance, he gives people opportunities and choices, but the first one is people. And so who are you connected to through source? Like, it's not just resources and who can do this or that for you, but there are naturally people who are going to pour into you and just see you for you and just how you show up and watching you move. And you don't even know what relationships you're building just by like, they may see you, like Jasmine, you guys were at the ride place together, but it's like you were building a relationship that it wasn't through just Studio Hop that she's like, okay, this is how she's doing. She saw you, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like you have to get around the right people and right environment to really allow yourself to flow and manifest what's supposed to happen in your life. And it does suck. Some people do have negative people in their life or people who really don't support them in the way that they're going. And so how do you help someone let that go? Because I feel like there is a level of grief of saying, you know what?
Yeah.
You may not be the person for me. Or do you even hold that conversation with people?
Yeah.
But it's like, how do you know? Like,
yeah. I had this amazing sermon that I was listening to years ago, and then I think she recircled back onto it another time that I was at church. But my female pastor, the wife of Earl, her name is Onika McClellan. She's incredible. She was speaking and like painted this word picture in one of the sermons that she was talking about how like all your friends are like on your back, right? Like you're carrying them up this mountain, the mountain of life and all of these trials. And you're really like really helping them move up this mountain. Or maybe you're linking arms. Maybe you're not carrying them. Some seasons we're carrying each other, right? And she mentioned that sometimes like during those water breaks or if you pause, that you do have to have the conversation of just like letting that person stay at that point of the mountain if you want to keep climbing. If they don't have the capacity and the strength to keep going, and it's out of love, it's not out of spite. Yeah. But sometimes you kind of have to look those relationships in the eyes and be like, you actually don't want as much out of life as I do, or we're not going in the same direction anymore. Especially
and it's okay.
And it's okay to just like let them to be there. And I think you might have said something earlier of it's like the no was still respected and honored because they know your heart, but sometimes you look at them and you lead with love and grace, but you're like, I love you so much, and then you kind of have this like ropes distance between you, and it's okay, but I'm with you in the grief of I've had friends in this city and in life that I no longer am close with, but I have to look back and be like, that friendship was for a reason, or like for that season at the time. And we're not that close anymore, but I think that's the beauty of the human experience too. It's like you can't keep everyone super close. And if you do, are you growing enough? And are they growing enough? So they are hard conversations, and I've definitely had to have a few, but sometimes they naturally work out to where you both just know you're going in different directions. Yeah. Or they're not supporting like everything that you want out of life. I love the friendships that can root for your joy and root for your successes. Like you feel it with them. And I have so many amazing girlfriends around me that would never want to like lead with a jealous spirit, but rather be like, let's go. Like she's doing this. I'm on her plane. I'm on the train. Let's go.
And I love that you shared you're at the water stop and it's like, if you can't go any longer, it's cool.
Yeah.
You go either stay here, go back down the mountain, but we're going up and it's okay.
Yep.
It's okay. That's my journey. We're all on our own journey, because you really don't want in friendship and business jealousy or envy or like cattiness or just like all these problems, because it really doesn't help you be the best version of yourself 100%. If you have to deal with all of that. So I think that's so helpful. I love how you're embedded with community in such a way that like it's going to be forever.
I hope so. And when you were just saying that community has come with me my whole life, I did think back to the cheerleading team when I was the youngest on the team. And one of the biggest parts of everything I've been a part of is I do feel like I'm on the younger end of a lot of the groups that I put myself in, because I crave learning from those who have walked before me. And so when it was like fitness, and Jasmine, for example, she was one of the lead instructors at that studio that we were at. I was so young. I was like 22 or 23 starting this, to coach clients that were much older than me, which is also intimidating. But Jazz is 6-7 years older than me. And I saw her, and then there was so much of her that I wanted to become. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about life, is this like really cool cyclical nature of being around people that you even just want a little part of. It's not saying that you want to clone yourself to be like them, but we can kind of like take and draw from and be inspired by the people around us.
So how did you ask those difficult questions of like, help me, grow, help me develop, help me sharpen, help my skill set? Because I think you do meet a lot of people who are scared to say help or like swear they have it all together. And you're like, you do know it's okay not to. Like, nobody's expecting you to have it all together. So what gave you the courage to speak up for yourself and say, like, hey, I think I really like this. Can you show me, teach me?
Yeah. I was riding at the Ride House as a client, like, front row bike, loving the energy of what a cycle class could feel like. And I was doing that for months. And in the back of my head, I was like, I should teach this. Like, I've been on mics. I'd have a lot of experience with cheerleading and rhythmic nature in general. And I was like, I should teach this. But there was always that like, you're not going to be a good coach in this capacity kind of voice in your head. And it was months down the line. And I would always get ready for Fossil or Studio Hop or whatever I was doing. And I stopped at the front desk and Jazz's head was down. And she like looked up at me and I was like, I really want to coach here. What would that look like? Is there an audition? And there was a response along the lines of like, I was waiting for you to ask.
Oh my gosh. So
not
she
like,
saw it in you.
I'm not going to seek it out, but also, okay, now that you've stepped up to the plate and you've shown that you see this within yourself, like, let's talk about it. And there was actually like an audition the next weekend. I auditioned, I made it, and I was able to train under her and really learn a lot. And from there, I started teaching different modalities over the years and have really like honed in on group fitness, and leading people through movement is literally my mission field. I feel very on purpose when I have the ability to lead people, but it is the ask. It's like, it's knowing that the step forward might be met with rejection, which is hard, but it also might be met with, like you said, God, show me how good it can get. Like, show me if this person is willing to take a chance on me, what I can learn from them. And I've sent so many asks out over the years, whether that be through personal, wanting to build relationships with brands and people, or through the studios. And I've never regretted asking. I think I would regret not, but like, I've put myself out there so many times to where my friends are like, you're really gonna like ask that brand if they want to do this? I'm like, yeah, what's the worst that can happen?
You're the same.
They'll say no.
Right. Like, what's the no to what you don't already have? Like, it does nothing for me. So I am the same way. Like, I'm gonna, the queen of go ask Jazz.
Literally, go ask Jazz.
Volunteer as tribute.
Me. Yes.
So I love that. So my next question for you is like, so now you've built this, you've helped build other brands. You have this phenomenal studio. You guys have 3 studios?
We have 2 locations, but we have many rooms within the studios to where it feels really expansive. Like, we do 8 class concepts. You can do 8 different workouts with us within 2 locations.
Am I manifesting y'all third studio?
I mean, I love that. Give me that energy, baby.
Does she have 3? But so what's like, how do you stay on the pulse of like, what's next? Because you have a lot, like, fitness looks different now for people. Social media looks different for people. Business, like, what does that look like for you to stay on the pulse of trailblazing in these industries that you're in, still being that creative director, still, also being a co-founder of a business, still being a people leader and manager?
Yep. I love this so much, especially that you said trailblazing, because it was something that Jasmine and I had just met this week, and we do these often, like, alignment meetings. Her life is moving in one direction, mine's in another direction. She's got 4 kids. I'm running these side businesses, and we're definitely moving in different directions, but we always try to hone in every few months on how is class doing, where are we going? And we had a really beautiful meeting this week we kind of sat in the pride of what we have been able to create and how we have followed fitness trends to allow our clients to grow into different ways just physically. So we started out as a cycle and HIIT training studio, and we very much just had those rooms, but we opened up our second location with kind of a more open concept to know and understand that even our physical bodies are going to want to shift and change, and they're going to want to cross train and do different things. So we didn't pigeonhole ourselves in that second location feeling like we had to have 50 bikes again or this equipment that would take up all the space, because we were already leaning into there's going to be these trends, and it's not that we're going to do them like half-assed. We're going to like go in. If we're going to create a new concept or a new way of moving or create something new, it's going to be like with all of our intention and all of our strength. And that's why we've started building out these different class styles, because just like life, we want to go on a walk one day, we want to go on a run, we want to lift. We wanted that element of fitness to meet, again, community, which is a big part of class. It's like you can grab a friend and take a different class every single day. And I'm just really proud of how we've kept pivoting. The pandemic taught me so much about what it looks like to hold reins lightly instead of like gripping on, because you have to be more fluid, right? You
Adaptable,
kind of have to exactly. And that also just led into my normal life too. It's like I always had this level of perfection over everything I did, and a mentor told me one day, published over perfection, like just literally do the thing. I was like launching my first website or something at the time. And he was like, it's never going to be perfect. It really won't, but get it out there and let it be refined as you go. And I think class has been refined as it's gone. We'll celebrate 7 years of like being a studio business in February. And I still don't think we're anywhere close to our ceiling. I'm like, there's still going to be change. There's still going to be growth. There's going to be new amazing people that come and people that move and have different life experiences to where they leave the studios. But it's been a steady constant for a lot of people just to find a place where they feel safe and seen and strengthened. And I'm so, so happy about everything that it's been in my life and for their life.
And I love that for you guys, because even when you talk about like trends, I think there are so many trends, but at the core of who you guys are, you did, like you said, you didn't really pigeonhole yourself to like, we teach these two things. Yeah. You were like, we serve people. Yeah. And so now we can be adaptable in how we do that and how we evolve. And do you feel like that has allowed class to really have the success that it has? Because in reality, there are a lot of studios who don't make it, you know? Totally. And it's like, we get you, we feel you. Sometimes those are friends of ours that we're like, we have to help you through that and grieve through that. Totally. And encourage you. But so my real question is like, where does that success, how does success look in this space for you? And then how do you look at that in the future? Yeah. Because you really can't hold on to trends in the sense of what's trending through social media right now. Yeah. Or like globally, like the Pilates hotties are out there, and they're like screaming from the mountaintop. They're like our fullest classes right now. Our Sculpt class is 98% capacity. So if you're just looking at numbers, it is like the concept that everyone wants to be at, and I love that. It's like a heated Pilates fusion of yoga and strength training. But how cool that maybe that season for Sculpt is so busy, and then it swings in another direction for like just stats and just data talking. But the real success goes back to what you said about just serving people. And I think a fitness studio can be extremely successful in fitness. We all know that. But when you can kind of zoom out and really focus on the people and seeing the people, that's where the gold is. Because at the end of the day, anyone can go to a studio, walk in, walk out, and feel like, oh, great workout. But can they say, man, like I felt like spiritually connected to that, or I felt connected to the community or connected to the person next to me. And so group fitness for me just marries like everything that I did, whether that was sports, creative, all the things. It's kind of fusing them together. And that's where the success comes from, is being tuned into the people in your community. We hear all the time, we heard months ago that there was this like craving of just weight training, of lifting without cardio, because there's been so many years of cardio, right? And we're hearing so many more studies show, especially in women's bodies, we need to be lifting weights. And we were hearing all these things and these gut pulls, how I talked about earlier. I'm like, oh, this feels like we need to walk into this. We really studied what it would look like to do like a weight training only class. And we just launched it last month, early August. And it has wait lists of 20 people in every single class. And I'm like, wow, what a great example of, we're going to step into something that we haven't stepped into before. We're going to do it to the best of our ability, but now we're just giving our clients and being in service of their goals. We hear you. Totally. Like you guys are always... We hear you, we're doing the research, we're educating ourselves enough so that when we do offer this, it's because we really heard our people.
Yeah.
And so
that's success to me. I'm like, man, that's it.
I love this. So what else? Because, like, guys, Paige is like, granted, this is just one of the many things she does, because you guys also have, and I don't want to get the brand name wrong.
Yes.
Sweatshirt. Is it sweatshirt?
Yeah.
Shirts?
I launched with my friend Liz Golden last year, almost a year and a half ago now. It's called the Dallas Club. And we were just making really cool streetwear, like Dallas-based clothing, because we never felt like there was really cool Dallas clothing that you could wear that wasn't like associated with one of our brands or one of the sports teams.
Yeah.
And so we built the Dallas Club, and that was just a really great space for me to feel creative that wasn't tied to fitness, because it felt like I could just kind of express myself through graphic design. And that's still something that we're holding on to. Liz has moved states for another job opportunity, so we're kind of in this flex of figuring out like what the next season for our clothing brand looks like. But I am starting something new outside of class and outside of the Dallas Club that I haven't talked about at all. And I'm leading my first fitness retreat under my name next year in Mexico, but my brand is called Cohere.
Did we hear it first?
You heard it first.
Oh, yeah, ladies and gentlemen.
Literally, like I'm still building the brand out. Like I'm building the aesthetics. I have my first brand photo shoot next week, and my first retreat is in April of next year.
Congrats.
Thank you. I want to be able to give back what I feel like when I travel, and I marry travel with fitness and holistic wellness. Like I give myself space to remove myself from my own life. It's not an escape mentality. I'm saying like going on a retreat in a really healthy, positive mindset of let me just connect back to myself, and what does it look like to put a healthy pause on my life, experience something and come back more nourished and more filled up. I've been the recipient of that for so long now. I've gone on a lot of retreats. I seek them out. It's part of me. It's the community part of me of meeting people from all over the globe. I know what I feel like when I return from a trip really revitalized, and I want to give that back to people. And I feel called and I feel ready to lead that now.
I love that for you. I'm
giddy. I'm giddy about it.
Freaking excited. Because you are, like I started with, you're a creative visionary. And so creatives, like that next thing, because you're always like gonna be birthing something.
Yeah.
But it also is beautiful to see that you're not scared to try it.
Yeah.
See how it goes, and you put your all into it. There's so much love and so much heart that's in it. So I can't wait for this.
Thanks.
So how can people keep up with Paige and all things Paige?
Yeah.
Class Studios, Dallas Club, your next.
Yeah, I do think that Instagram is kind of my hub. It just has always felt right. I haven't gotten into the whole like TikTok space. I definitely have a website, but it's at Paige Forrest on Instagram. Forrest is my middle name. It was my grandmother's name. It's part of me, Forrest. I think people think it's kind of just like a fun cutesy thing that I made up, but it is my first and my middle name. So Paige Forrest. And there you'd be able to find class. You'll soon be able to find a lot more about Cohere. I haven't launched that brand yet in terms of my retreats and experiences that I want to bring to Dallas and beyond. But that feels like a really good space to just be able to keep up with what I'm doing. Social media is a funny thing, and I wish I had quote unquote like more time for it.
Ooh,
but
that's a double-edged sword,
I'm like I want to be off screens and enjoying my life, and then I'm like, oh, but I need to share this, and I have this on my heart. So I'm kind of in the season of figuring out actually what my Instagram looks like. I kind of want to take the reins back and not feel like it always has to be publishing or sharing something for like return on investment, whether that's like an event or something, but I actually just want it to be like a sharing space. So I'm trying
I'm getting it very much same, because I went to Pilates the other day and Matt was like, are we going to record? And I was like, in this season, I'm going inward so I can understand what output is happening, because I'm like, I have a podcast now, and that really does like to be here and be present. And this, like, I know what I want the people to hear and feel. So I get that. And it's so, I don't know if we always talk about like the actual social media experience. Like you have a nice following. You have built your following from this organic space. But being true to yourself to be able to be like, okay, I kind of want to be present. I don't want to be on screen, but I also want to share with people and educate them and help impact them. But how do I do that dance that's true to me first?
Exactly.
So I love that. And that is truly a really hard conversation I think a lot of people are having.
Yeah.
Because of the mental health issues that are happening right now. So I'm inspired that even you're like, what does this look like for me?
Yeah, it's going to look different in every season. I just know that when I travel or I'm not in my exact day today, I feel more inspired to share because it is that kind of like tapping into just the creative mindset. And so I'm just trying to, I just got back from a trip. I'm going on one next week. And these are like those big trips where I am away from the country and I'm getting to experience another culture. So I want to document it. But then I come back and I'm like, man, I have nothing to share, but that's not true. It's just trying to figure out those beautiful little windows that you can feel creative within your own life, because you and I both have like very full calendars and full schedules and people that we're working with. So yeah, social media is a weird place and I would much rather live in the real. And so that's where I give my priority. But I also really love the connection and everything all the beautiful things that come from Instagram and the platforms that we're on.
Yeah. And I think you always share from such a real place. Like when you were on your last retreat, I was crying with you when you were sharing
Sobbing.
like your meditation. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. That was a very divine moment. And I was actually like, man, do I share this? Because it felt very private and personal, just like when you have any kind of big download or like moment, whatever that would look like for whoever's faith and spirit. But it was a really big, profound, like full body feeling. And I was like, do I share something like this? And I was like, maybe it'll touch somebody or maybe it'll like activate something. And I had such beautiful feedback and messages of like, whoa, like this happened to me, or I love hearing your voice through this and thank you for sharing. And it was just a really wonderful
You helped
experience.
So many people pause. Like the moment you started to share, I was like, you felt like through the phone, you could feel you. And you, like in that moment, I was like, okay, what is she about to share with us? Because, oh my God, I
is this
feel
girl
it.
crying on the internet.
And no, like that wasn't even the first thing, because it just like my tears came from like relating to you.
Yeah.
Of like, and how you really interpreted this pause and this moment of just like, you had been wanting this message from God to come, and like finally it did. And it really is something that's relatable, because some people are like having that same experience, like, man, can I tell you? And you were like that message of like, it's gonna come.
It's gonna come.
It's gonna come. So,
and I opened my camera to record that, just to like speak, and the cathedral bells were dinging in the background of this 12th century monastery that I was at. And you just know in moments of life where you're like, that was so aligned. Like that wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And somebody responded like, whoa, like I just got chills because those bells were ringing when you were talking about your faith and talking about this like divine encounter that you had. So I think it's just even those really sweet little moments of life that remind you that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. We can always dream, we can always have vision, but to also feel really blessed and comfortable to be in the present season that you're in.
Ladies and gentlemen, comfortable conversations. Paige left us with the sweetest nugget. So Paige, thank you so much for being here. Love you dearly, girl.
Love you. Thank you so much.